The beginning of my association with the guitar started. My parents got me started playing guitar when I was 8 years old, and I started classical violin when I was 9 and played that for 10 years, which I thought was valuable in training your ear due to the lack of frets, both the timing and pitch. And I played like more European music, and I didn't really get into rock and roll or pop music till I was a teenager. And it took me a long time to get a feel for it, where it didn't sound like square, to use an old term, where I could actually play pop and rock with the right feel. But I kept playing violin for 10 years through all that, and then I took jazz for about a year, and I learned to read and write music, both in my guitar lessons and my violin. And I dropped violin because I wasn't able to improvise and get the joy that you get of improvising on guitar, because violin is just very symmetric, reading classical music. So when I was a teenager, we learned all the 60s Beatles, Kinks, Rolling Stones kind of stuff. And we had a band that went through the whole Stax soul era, so I've got some of that background. And I was one of the guys in the bands I was in is Joe English, who went on to play drums with Paul McCartney and Wings in the late 70s. And then we entered the whole psychedelic, Jimi Hendrix, Cream, and that era, which after that my influences became, well, when I was 19, I got a gig with a band that had a Motown deal. It was a white band, but it was in Motown, which at the time was an all Afro-American company, when I was 19. So my first recording session was at the house, that's the little house where they did all the Supremes and Marvin Gaye, which is now a museum called Hitsville in Detroit, for Motown. So I got to record 5 sides when I was 19, and that's how I got the recording bug, where I thought, I wanted to do that for a living if I could. So after the Motown experience, when that group broke up, I ended up, through that experience, I'm from Rochester, New York, which is upstate New York, and I ended up doing all the recording, or most of the recording, in like regional, local, and national jingles. And we would do stuff like, we did some music for the Olympics and HBO and that kind of stuff. So I was in a full-time club group, but what gave me hope for the future, which the live club group thing is not a very satisfying experience, but because you're doing cover material. But the recording kept me in the music thing, and had a lot of recording at an early age, and learned, how long it takes you to play something in the recording. It plays back, and it says what you thought you were, would have felt, what you were doing. It took a long time just to get that skill. And so I moved to Nashville in 1982 to start a Christian rock band with Joe English, who was leaving Paul McCartney and Wings. So I toured for about 5 years and played on all his records and co-produced some of it, and wrote songs on some of them. And after 5 years, when the group broke up, I decided to try to get into studio playing and songwriting and see if I could make that happen for myself. Well, Joe English, coming from Paul McCartney and Wings, had a high profile in that genre in Christian music, so people were aware of that. And I had played on all the records and had some songwriting, so it wasn't like just moving to town cold. People knew, and we actually we did a live, there would be like a live DVD shoot to open this major studio at the time called Bullet Recording, and it was the most state-of-the-art studio in Nashville at the time when it opened. So we had a little bit of exposure in the area, and I was known to be a good player, and that I'd recorded. It wasn't just live and everything. So it was real slow. I took a job. We'd gotten our first house, and work was really slow in the music business, so I took a job doing some construction work with a buddy of mine who's now a record producer. But that was only temporarily, and so it took a while to get that all going. And during the '80s, I had about 30 or so songs recorded in Christian music, and me and two other guys actually had a hold on a Bob Dylan cut. He held it for about a month and a half, but it fell through. But we were like, you know,